Yeah,
on
you'll
your
see
screen.
it on mine. What's going on, troopers? Got an awesome one today for you. Going to be breaking down tactical athlete training and the principles and pillars that go into that. So if you are a military, first responder, police officer, or any other type of profession that requires you to be physically at your best, I'm really excited because we got Coach Marcos here, who's going to break down everything that you need to know inside of being a tactical athlete. And so, Marcos, just share a little bit about your background, why this stuff is stuff that you're super into, and then we'll dive into the presentation.
Absolutely. Hey guys, Coach Marcos here. So I think first and foremost for me, this definitely hits home because I served as a Marine infantry from 2002 to 2006 with 3 deployments overseas, combat deployments to Iraq. And during that time, we didn't really learn too much about strength and conditioning. Other than that, we would go on some hikes. Whenever we were back in the States, we would also we didn't know too much about the gym either. With the things that we did know was basically some basic bodybuilding. Nothing that was really applicable, I would say, to the job that we were actually doing. So most of the time, I think a lot of us were pretty beat up just from overuse injuries, mostly due to running in boots, doing long runs, an excessive amount of volume, and then when we would do any type of gym workouts, we were discouraged from really and some of it was being discouraged, and also some of it was just being ignorant of the movements, from doing any kind of really compound movements. We didn't really understand any type of how to squat, how to deadlift, how to do any kind of basic movements like that. And it's really something that I wish I would have had at that time. Knowing what I know now, really could have upped my game. So that's what I want to do now for our men and women, both who are serving, and then also veterans who are out now and are just looking to really learn more and up their game in their own life, whether they're still in as reservists or they're completely separated and just want to really just stay in shape and maintain that discipline. So I think that's really kind of what drives me, and I'm really looking forward to putting on this chat today.
Yeah, well, let's dive into it. So we got a quick little presentation for y'all to dive into this. And then if you have any other questions, the link down in the description is going to be the best way to chat with us to learn more about getting this implemented for you. It's what we do inside of Fit Nerd Academy, where we help nerds like us improve their fitness, lose 20, 30 pounds. More importantly, get fit for their republic, whether that's their country, their community, or their family. So Marcos, I'm going to let you take it away, brother, and let's dive in.
Awesome. All right. So tactical training principles. Today, we're going to go over really a 1,000-foot view of what are some of the things that we should be thinking about. What are some things that maybe we should be training but aren't training right now as a tactical athlete. Of course, we'll talk about also what is a tactical athlete and what's the significance there, right? So we're going to define that. We're also going to talk about what are the key physical demands for these athletes, whether you're military, law enforcement, emergency services, and then talk about a couple effective strategies and some things on structuring your training as you're going through your training session. All right.
All right.
All right. So first and foremost, who's this for? I mentioned it just slightly earlier, but to be more specific, military, law enforcement, fire, and emergency services, right? So that's going to be EMTs and paramedics regarding EMS. So this is who we're looking at. These are the people that are on the front lines every single day, whether that's at home or abroad. These are the people that need assistance the most, and really just what's the 80-20, right? What's the 20% of exercises that's really going to give us our 80% return, the biggest bang for our buck, if you will. So again, what is a tactical athlete, right? Mentioned it before: military, law enforcement, fire, and EMS. One of the biggest things, and this is something I'm super excited just to kind of bring forward as a definition, is what is the difference between traditional athletics and what our tactical athletes need on a daily basis. So traditional athletics, right, are going to require Qualities such as speed, stamina, strength, skill, power, agility, and coordination, plus endurance. But this is where the tactical athlete really differs, is that they're going to need job specific skills and, more importantly, the ability to perform under pressure in chaotic and life threatening environments or conditions for an undetermined time frame. There is no clock if you are a tactical athlete. You can be there for an hour, you can be there for 10 minutes, you can be there for 24 hours plus. So we really don't know what's going to be asked of us at any given time. And there are no weight classes. So it, really doesn't matter whether you weigh, 120 pounds or you weigh 200 pounds, or your height, right? It really doesn't matter. Everything's on the table and we need to be prepared at any given time. So this is a little bit chunky here, right? I did that on purpose because I think it's really important for us to understand what are the actual demands from a biomechanical perspective across these different roles. And I just pulled up a few different stats. And if you want to go check these out, the references will be included as well. But let's talk about it, right? So we got military first, right? US soldiers are carrying an average of 100 pounds or 45 kilos, and some carrying over that, right? 140 pounds plus, or 63 kilos of additional load. So this is why we're seeing such a huge increase since the 80s of these, musculoskeletal issues, low back issues, knee issues, hips, ankles. All these things start to develop, as these loads go up. But at the same time, the knowledge and the opportunity, more importantly, is not being presented along with that increase in load, as far as training and education and just opportunity for our men and women in service. And again, they start to deal with that after service, knee issues, back issues for the rest of their life. Fire, right? We have a combination of structural firefighting, protective equipment, and firefighting tools that have been found to place an external load of 60 to 70 pounds on our firefighters. That is significant. They're being exposed to 900 plus degrees in an active fire with a load. This is, of course, going to take a significant toll on the body, right? When we're thinking about law enforcement, nearly 68% of our law enforcement surveyed, and again, the references, if you want to look into those, are included as well at the end of this, are wearing at least an additional 20 pounds of gear or more to work on a routine basis. Many officers are complaining about low back pain due to their belts not sitting properly, and they're sitting in their cars for long periods of time, or they're filling out paperwork, and it's causing a tremendous amount of issues both in the hips and the back, and that's leading up into the rest of the body. EMS. This was something that I was, extremely disturbed by here. Just what is happening on the EMS side. Paramedics may lift or raise a stretcher nearly 40 times in a shift. These people are not lifting, bodies or individuals who are injured that weigh 10 pounds. These are fully grown adults, obviously, and having to raise that, as many times as they are is, of course, going to put you at a risk, right? Paramedic work is a mix of prolonged sitting or sedentary time, right, where you're not moving. Maybe you're filling out paperwork or you're waiting for a call, and then immediately having to spring into action. And that's one of the biggest things that's leading to a lot of these musculoskeletal issues. So let's talk about rate of injury, right? We talked a little bit of the biomechanical, demands on the individuals. Regarding military, overuse injuries are comprising at least 70% of all injuries among active duty component or AC soldiers. Female soldiers are even at greater risk of having musculoskeletal issues than their male counterparts. On the fire side, right? Study of 437 firefighters from 3 US states were reporting that muscle strains and sprains. Of those 437 people that submitted results, 74% of them said that their issues were coming from muscle strains and sprains. And within that 74%, extremity issues, back injuries, etc., were making up the bulk of those issues. On the law enforcement side, there was 65,000 plus, right? 65,579 incidents recorded. 12,000 or a little bit over 12,000 or 19% were related to lower extremity issues, musculoskeletal injuries, specifically the knee. And within that, sprains and strains were accounting for another 42%. And within that, also, this is happening while they're actively arresting offenders. With the EMS and then paramedic side, data showing that paramedics are and their counterparts are at high risk of back injuries. We talked about them lifting up stretchers 40 times within a shift at least. PC injury rates are now more than 7 times higher than for all other US workers, and that is absolutely insane. So let's talk about where tactical athlete training comes in and what are the goals there, right? First off, we're thinking in a systems mindset. We're not thinking about one specific methodology. We're thinking at the entire individual as they're going along. So what are we looking to accomplish? Increase longevity. We're looking to improve career productivity at their specific job, optimize performance, of course, injury resistance, injury. And the reason why I use the word resistance rather than injury proof or eliminate injury is because just because of the nature of the job, it's almost impossible to guarantee that you're completely injury free. But we do want to make sure that we push that limit as far as we possibly can to avoid you getting injured within your given field, right? And then lastly, motivate through education. We want to make sure that the tactical athlete is able to be self-sustainable, that they understand how to take care of their own issues on a daily basis, how to structure training programs for either themselves or their unit, and really feel confident that they can bring a balanced training program to either themselves, their loved ones, or the people they're serving with. So we talked about being system-based, and when we're thinking about a tactical athlete training program versus a method or preference. And let's kind of break that down a little bit, right? If we're focusing on methods, our focus is going to be very narrow, and it's also going to create imbalances. Methods are going to be categorized as or include kettlebell work, right? And you may have heard a lot of people, oh, I'm a kettlebell person, right? That's what I like. That's how I like to train. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as we see and we go along, there's much more to the equation here when we're thinking about life as a tactical athlete. Suspension or TRX also falls into this. Olympic weightlifting, bodybuilding. Again, nothing is wrong with any of these, but to solely focus your training on any one of these would be as if you said, you have a hammer to any problem that you meet or you come across is going to look like a nail, and you're going to treat it as such, which is, I think, for the tactical athlete community is just not going to be possible with the amount of responsibility and situations that they come across on a daily basis. Preference based, right? And this is more to the point of the status quo. So specifically within the military and a lot of other services are going to be long distance running, maybe rucking, running in boots, circuits, or smokers. Sometimes we can call them metabolic conditioning. These are going to be preferences. Some people have a preference, or whether that's at your work or whether that's at your unit, towards this type of training. And again, this is a means to an end. It's not the end in of itself. It's part of a system along with the methods that I mentioned earlier. Methods are really best as part of an overall system, and it's going to guide the tactical athlete toward their goal as part of a holistic program that we put together. So let's talk about some themes real quick, because we mentioned methods, and again, there's nothing wrong with a kettlebell or with Olympic weightlifting or anything like that. But we have different training themes. What are we trying to accomplish at a given time, right? So if our training theme is foundational, right, what we're looking to accomplish or the training effect, if you can see all the way to the right, is going to be balanced movement. Now, can we accomplish that with kettlebells? Yes. Can we accomplish that with a barbell? Of course. We can accomplish that with many different things. We're not limited to one method. But this is how we're structuring our programming, in the sense of remaining balanced and really trying to focus on the strategic picture versus getting caught up on, I have to use a specific implement or style of training. If our training theme is general strength, we're looking to add in volume and we're trying to develop work capacity. If our goal is to build some muscle, it's hypertrophy, right? We need to add intensity, and we're looking to, as a training effect or a result or goal, is going to be increased lean muscle mass. Same thing for maximum strength, we need time under tension, right? We need to feel the load on our body for a certain amount of time and progressively overload that, right? Progressively add weight or control as we're moving along. The training effect that we're looking for in that theme is going to be absolute strength or limit strength. The last one, maximal power. Again, what we need there is small amounts of reps. Just think 1 to 3, 1 to 5, and then long periods of rest, 2-3 minutes plus. What we're trying to go for there is explosiveness. Okay, and that can be moving light weights very fast. It could be plyometrics, depending on the difficulty. But either way, the reps are going to be small. It's going to be a small amount of volume, and we're looking to have a training effect of becoming more explosive or tie in that strength to something more athletic. So what are some considerations as we're looking at the tactical athlete training session? These are the main focuses that we look at as we're trying to put together a program on the day. And this is now getting into more of that kind of 300-foot view, right? We're getting a little bit more into the weeds here before we pull back out. So the first one is going to be pillar prep. Pillar prep is going to start everything off on a good note, right? It's going to tie in everything from the hip, the core or the trunk, and the shoulders. And this is really where we're seeing a big discrepancy between across the tactical athlete kind of spectrum, is that there's a lack of understanding of how to not only activate the pillar, which is again going from the hip complex all the way up to through to the shoulders, which is then putting additional load on our shoulders, our hips, and our lower back, because we can't sync those together. So pillar prep is a way for us to tie the lower body or the hip complex through to the shoulders and really allow our body to work as one piece. The second one is going to be movement prep. This is going to be something more like active yoga. What movements are you doing? Are you squatting that day? You're going to be, taking yourself through a forward lunge, maybe to a side lunge, doing some rotation, trying to loosen up the spine, but you're not going to be standing still, right? There's not going to be any static stretching as you're doing your movement prep. You're really trying to mimic the movements that you're going to be doing that day in a safer environment. Plyometrics, this is really where the money is made, where we start to tie in the strength that you've built and try to apply that more in an athletic really environment. If you're a tactical athlete, this could be done weighted, it could be done unweighted. We move from unweighted plyometrics, explosive work, to weighted that are maybe a little bit more real world, if you want to think about it in that sense. But either way, this is where you actually transfer your strength into something usable and develop that explosiveness. Movement skills, this is where we actually start to train the brain. We have known and unknown movement skills. This is where you're going to be tested on your reaction, right? Whether that's a known distance. If I say, as I press this button and it makes a beep, you're going to go to the left as fast as you can, and that's a known. And then there's unknown, where maybe we randomize it. You can go left or right, depending on where I point. You don't know where it's going to be, but either way, we're working on that reactionary speed. It's going to force you to really tie in everything that we worked on, from pillar prep to movement prep to plyometrics, from the lower body all the way through that upper body, right? Through the pillar. You're going to have to learn how to move athletically, stay safe, which is going to transfer over to reducing knee issues, reducing lower back issues, shoulder issues, etc., because now you're going to know how to organize your body in a way, especially under load. Med ball, as we move into that, is really force transfer. How can we work on force transfer from our foot all the way through to our extremities? In this case, it's going to be releasing the ball into a wall or to the ground. This is what ties everything in, right? These are dead balls, which basically don't bounce. And then as you get more advanced, you can start to use balls that actually will react. This is significant. It seems like it's a very easy drill, just the ball, but it's really one of the most athletic things that you can do. We're tying in our ability to rotate and drive force into an object. That's both deceleration and acceleration into an object. Strength and power, right? This is where we're working on our barbell movements, our compound lifts, trying to increase our limit strength. Limit strength both on our lowering, limit strength on our raising something up or a concentric, and then also our isometric, where we're working on what's the max that we can lift and hold something, right? Just stay in a position and show control. ESD and regeneration are going to be our final two, as we're looking to add that into our session for the day. ESD, energy system development. Next, we're going to cover this in just a second, but this is where we're actually going to start developing our different energy pathways, not just our long distance, long runs, but our short term pathways, right? Especially if you're a police officer or fire, and across the spectrum of tactical athletes, 30 to 90 seconds is when a lot of engagements happen, and need to be able to do that over and over and over again. Finally, regeneration, which is where we bring the nervous system back into balance and prepare our bodies for the next training session, right? So that could include nutrition, that could include massage, that could include hydration, etc. But this is really where we try to again, bring our body and our nervous system back into alignment and prepare for that recovery portion. So let's go into ESD protocol. There's a couple things, and this is, again, getting a little bit deeper. This is the 100-foot view here on ESD, energy system development. This is kind of the area where most people have the biggest difficulty as far as programming goes. So this gives you a little bit of insight as to why we're doing what we're doing and how to actually apply it on a day-to-day basis. ESD protocol. So from left to right, red is going to be our short, high power output, short time frame movements. I included a few here. We'll talk about that in a second. Going from left to right, we start to move that timeline out. Power starts to drop as the time starts getting longer. Now our muscles are starting to burn. We've gotten past that initial explosive period. And then now we're starting to get into a little bit more of our capacity, right? Moving all the way out to the yellow, which is going to be more aerobic. And this is what most people are training. So there's a big opportunity for us to make a lot of improvements here, because most of what we're doing is in the yellow and maybe even slightly into the green, but we're not training correctly our pathways in the red and into that dark green area. So what's an example of anaerobic power? This is going to be interval based. Most of what we're doing as far as energy system development is going to be interval based. This is going to be the time period between 5 seconds and 1 minute. The work to rest ratio, which is hugely important here, is going to be 1, 2, 3 to 5. So you're going to work for that period, 5 seconds, and rest 3 to 5 times longer than it took you. Intensity is going to be all out. This is going to be as hard as you can. Exercise options for this, because it's a shorter time duration, need to be pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of time to transition between a lot of different implements. So you have sprints, you have sled and plate pushes, you have change of direction drills. These are some of the options that are available to you. Okay, so now we're moving out. We're moving towards that, again, towards the right side of the spectrum. Anaerobic capacity. This is where we start. The muscles are burning. This is the really sucky time, right? This really hurts. This is where you start. Your whole body is just feeling like, everything is gonna shut down. Interval duration is going to be 1 to 3 minutes. Work to rest ratio is going to be 1 or to 3 to 5, right? Intensity is going to be all out effort. Exercise options for this, we start to get a little bit longer. Things change a little bit, right? We start to get a little bit more options. You got sprints. Now we're adding in circuits because you have a little bit longer time frame. Now you can maybe add in an extra implement. Okay, so maybe you have a run and a kettlebell swing or something of that nature. Sled and plate pushes are always going to be included. Change of direction drills and time blocks. Density is really the focus there. Let's zoom out just a bit. How does this apply to our overall week? This is the implementation protocol for a general training week. And you can see we have 2 high intensity days, and then we're going to, again, ebb and flow, right? We start off with some medium duration intervals, aerobic power, right? So that's going to be longer duration. And you can see where we're at as far as intensity, right? That's going to be more in the green, in that slightly touching the yellow. Going into the red on day 2, day 3, coming back down to allow that system to recover, starting to come back up, still staying aerobic, but getting a little bit faster. Day 5, we're back in the suck, hitting it in the red, and we're going anaerobic capacity, right? So that's going to be that lactic work. That's going to be that muscle burn stuff. Really sucky area to be in. Back down and finishing off in day 6 at a low steady state, allowing that body to flush out and recover for the next week, right? With day 7 being completely off. Being prepared for a random task is not the same as preparing randomly for any task. And I think that's something that we all need to take to heart, because there's so much shiny object syndrome. I think, especially in the training community, and as someone who's just trying to get fit or do the best they can at their job, there's so many things pulling you in one direction. But what we can say is that we need to have a framework in order to structure our training. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And if you want those resources, the references, please see the end of the presentation for some more information.
Cool. Killer, Marcos. And I love this comment too that we got from Neuro Alpha. This is all information that he wished he had back in the 2010s when he was still in. And I see this all the time. What can I do to just get my minimums for the APFT, right? Or the ACFT or whatever it is that their job really is. And they kind of had an extra thing that kind of added on. Never really had the mindset to treat the body as a single complex unit, just trying to focus on individual things.
Right.
We got Ben, who's over across the pond, but working to implement a lot of this into his future career. And so I think there's a few things that I had questions or things that would be super interesting to touch on real quick and follow up. One, I love the difference between a system and a method. People can get married to their favorite type of equipment or training styles and almost become this religious, I only do kettlebells or I only pick up heavy things and power lift. It's like there's so much more to training than just dogmatic views of the Jedi to say.
No, absolutely.
The undetermined time was also a really big one for me. I played college baseball. I played basketball, football, and every single position has, all right, you're running a route for 10 seconds max, right? Or you're running, 90 feet to the bag max. Football or basketball, you might need, longer sustained bouts, but you get a timeout, right? You can throw the ball out of play and the ref's going to stop play. There's no stopping play if some crazy guy is chasing you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I thought that was a super big one. Like, you can plan for everything. One of my favorite sayings is everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Exactly.
Mike Tyson. And it's like,
Yeah.
all right, you're ready if everything goes according to plan, but it's not going to go according to plan.
100%.
And then the big one, I was curious, this is more of a question on my end. With guys who are maybe active duty or they're working overnight shifts and it's 24 hours on, or maybe they're working nights or they got a family. How do you look at undulating the intensities while also, like, you got a plan of going high, low, but then life also might be high, low, high, low. So how do you reconcile those?
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is like, really have to keep an open mind, and something that I talk about a lot with my clients and athletes is that on those days that we are our cup is full, right? Because we talk about this cup of like of stressors. We have family, we have all the different roles that we have. I'm a brother, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and then we have the 12-hour shift, and then we have this. So if it's one of those days, I always say, with the focus shifts away from performance, and it shifts back into that kind of check in the box, right? We're just trying to get go through the motions. We're trying to get the work in. If you're like, hey Marcos, I only have normally I have 90 minutes and now I only have 15 minutes, well then we have to look at what the overall theme is, right? So we have to take into consideration several variables. What's the theme? If it's a foundational theme of training for that block, then we'll just work on maybe some active yoga, right? If you only have 15 minutes, let's do some planks. Let's do some really slow squats or something like that. If that's all you have is your body weight, if you have a kettlebell, maybe we can do something a bit different and work unilaterally. But the focus stays within that theme. And if you're just like, hey, dude, I got 2 hours of sleep, then what do we focus on at that point? Maybe it's just a little bit of mobility, right? So the answer is it always depends for sure. And we're never married. And like you said, you have a plan until you get punched in the face and it changes. We're never married to the plan so much that just because it says, hey, we're supposed to max out today, I think that we're going to throw everything out the window. We change that, and maybe we have to come back next week, right? So no big, we just move on. And that's the nature, I think, of my time in as a Marine as well. Is that's one thing that we could always count on, was that we would make up these plans. We would never get really, we try to stay decentralized and really not fall in love with our plans, because we knew that as soon as we stepped out, there's just so many variables and so much randomness that it's more important to be able to adapt and overcome than it is to, dogmatically kind of stick to what you have on the schedule, right? That's great, but it doesn't always apply.
Yeah, I think two things. We got Brown Coat TBD just knocked out 11 miles and did the Boba Fett. So I love that.
Awesome.
And I think a good way to think about this too, though, is like, even just in this post too, like I love the fact that you ran 11 miles and did a circuit,
Mhm.
but you got to periodize these things and do them in seasons. You're not going to be able to train for a marathon and improve your maximal strength and
Mhm.
improve, what I
Right.
like, build 10 pounds of muscle, like whatever it is. And so it really comes down to being able to look at this as, to be cliche, like a journey.
Mhm.
And in a
Mhm.
perfect world, you might be able to get a 3-month block where there's no stress, no curveballs, and
Mhm.
you can be super consistent. But I think this is why it's important to just do something, be consistent, understand
Right.
that there's seasons in your life, and there's going to be a season where you build a really good base from a
Mhm.
running standpoint, and you build your
Mhm.
engine. Then there might be a season where you build a really good foundation from a training standpoint.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
whether you're an athlete, whether you're a tactical athlete, or whether you're just a dad trying to get fit, right? Choose the thing that's most important to you, address that,
Mhm.
then it's much easier to maintain with
Right.
just maintenance volume.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something that one of the things that I love that we do is, of course we want to come into everything with a plan, but we're coaching the person. We're not coaching, the system. We're not coaching the training plan. We're coaching the individual. And I know even for myself, and I know yourself, and really every coach, is things change, and we have to we have that ideal where it's like, hey, when I come in, I was expecting to do this, and something completely got thrown off. My tire went out, this happened, that happened, and it just doesn't go that way. So I think more so, like, of course we want to have a overall plan, and maybe guideline, but again, at the end of the day, it's really how best can we adapt and then move forward,
Yeah,
with our life. So
definitely. We got Ben here. Best advice for building endurance versus power.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think that if we go back to the I don't know, if can we click back to the slide real quick?
Yeah, totally. Let's
With the
go.
ESD, the
Yep.
the the graph there. Yeah. So this is what I would say, and this is, I think that's a great question, Ben, because when we're talking about themes, right? If our goal is to build endurance, right, then what we're looking to stay in is more. We can work limit strength, right? We can work trying to get stronger. But again, as far as our conditioning, we probably need to stay in that yellow kind of greenish zone. Most of our stuff is going to be there, and maybe we can slightly touch some of the red, But really, our focus is going to be on adaptation towards building that endurance. We want to build our aerobic capacity, which is going to be a little bit more towards that lower end where you see the curve. And that's what I would say. I would say is what is how can we stay strategic? If we're trying to build endurance, then we can still be working strength. That's not, I think, going to interfere too much, but it's where we get in trouble is starting to do too many metcons, right? Starting to do too many high intensity workouts when we're trying to build endurance. And I see people fall into that trap all the time where it's like, hey, I want to build my aerobic capacity, but all they do is 5 minutes and 10 minute smokers. And there's nothing wrong with smokers, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But we really have to evaluate are we thinking strategically about this? If our goal is to build endurance and we want to have a certain marathon time or whatever, then we need to train that theme, right? So that would be my short answer.
Yeah, no, great. I love it. Cool. Let's wrap this up. And anyone who has any questions, feel free to drop them below down in the comments. Marcos and I will tag team them. We got the free Fit for the Republic community. If you're doing the 30-day challenges, that's going to be linked down in the description as well. And then if you want to learn more about Fit Nerd Academy and working with us and joining this really kind of fun community that we've got of essentially nerds who are working on getting fit for their republic, their family, their community, their country, dial in a lot of nutrition things, bringing everything together holistically and getting your training nutrition dialed in specific to you, then that link is also going to be down below. We can just have a conversation, see where you're at, see if it makes sense. And if not, more than happy to point you in the right direction. But if it doesn't make sense, I would love to work with you, Marcos and I. So thanks everyone for the time, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Trooper Transmission.
All right, guys, take care.